The message appeared on my phone at 12:03 a.m., one single text that ended everything: "Don't bother coming home. The locks are changed." For a few seconds, I just stared at it, my reflection trembling in the screen light. Then I realized, this wasn't the end. It was my beginning. Because you don't throw someone out of a house they built. Before I tell you how I took back everything they stole, hit the like button, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. This is not revenge. This is justice. You want to know what real betrayal feels like? It's not the dramatic movie moment where someone screams and throws things. It's quieter than that. It's colder. It's realizing that the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally have been calculating your worth this entire time, and you've been found insufficient. That text message didn't surprise me because it was cruel. It surprised me because it was honest. For the first time in my 32 years of life, my parents had told me the truth about how they really felt. No more pretending. No more manipulation disguised as love. Just pure, distilled rejection delivered at midnight like some kind of twisted birthday present I never asked for. But let me back up, because this story doesn't start with that text. It starts 29 years earlier, in a house that looked like every American dream you've ever seen in a commercial, complete with the white picket fence and the porch swing that creaked just right in the summer breeze. From the outside, my childhood looked picture perfect: mom's pies cooling on the windowsill, dad teaching me how to ride a bike, family barbecues where everyone smiled for the camera. Inside, it was a system. My father ran it like a factory, and I was the worker that never clocked out. While other kids learned piano, I learned how to patch drywall. While my sister painted her nails, I painted the porch. While my friends were at sleepovers, I was rewiring the basement because good girls help their families. Mom's favorite line. Family helps family. But I later learned that what she really meant was, you help us, and don't expect anything back. See, there's this thing that happens in families like mine. They don't call you the scapegoat. They call you responsible. They don't say you're being exploited. They say you're mature for your age. They don't admit they're stealing your childhood. They say you're such a good helper. The language matters because it shapes how you see yourself. For years, decades, I genuinely believed I was lucky to have a family that trusted me with so much responsibility. I thought it meant they respected me. I thought it meant I was special. I was special, all right. Special like a workhorse is special. Special like a tool is special. Useful, reliable, and completely replaceable the moment something better comes along. My younger sister Sarah was 3 years behind me, and from the moment she could walk, the rules were different for her. When Sarah broke something, it was an accident. When I broke something, it was careless. When Sarah couldn't finish her chores, she was overwhelmed, and I was asked to help her. When I couldn't finish mine, I was making excuses. Sarah got piano lessons. I got told that music was nice to have, but not practical. Sarah got new clothes for school. I got told that mine were perfectly fine, and that I should be grateful. Sarah got her own room painted any color she wanted. I got told that my room was fine as is, because we needed to save money for Sarah's college fund. The college fund. Let me tell you about that particular knife twist. From the time I was 14, every conversation about my future included the phrase, well, we'll see what we can manage. Sarah's college fund, meanwhile, was discussed like it was a sacred trust that could never be touched. Even when the roof started leaking and Dad needed $3,000 for repairs, even when Mom's car died and they needed money for a replacement, the college fund remained untouchable. You know what paid for those repairs? My summer job money. You know what bought Mom's replacement car? My graduation gift money from grandparents who thought they were helping me start my adult life. But here's the really sick part, I was proud of it. I felt good about sacrificing for my family. I felt mature, responsible, needed. When my friends complained about their parents, I felt superior because my parents trusted me with real adult problems. I was helping to hold our family together. I was important. God, I was such an idiot. When I got my first real job after college, a decent position at an accounting firm that actually paid enough to rent my own place, I thought things would change. I thought I'd finally earned the right to be just a daughter instead of an unpaid family employee. Instead, they changed the rules. Suddenly, my success became their emergency fund. Electric bills, accidentally, got routed to my account. Car repairs that somehow became my emergencies because, we're struggling right now, honey, and you're doing so well. Every time I said yes, they smiled wider. Every time I hesitated, they said, you're the responsible one, you understand. The responsible one. There's that word again. Responsible for everyone's problems. Responsible for keeping the peace. Responsible for making sure the family stayed together, stayed functional, stayed happy. Everyone except me, apparently. My happiness was never part of the equation. Meanwhile, my younger sister got vacations, college tuition fully paid, and art retreats in Italy because she needed to find herself as an artist. 25 years old and still finding herself, while I was 28 and apparently already found enough to bankroll everyone else's journey of self-discovery. Do you know what it feels like to watch someone take a trip to Europe with money that could have been your emergency fund? Do you know what it's like to smile and say, "That's wonderful, honey," when your sister shows you pictures from Florence while you're eating ramen for the third night in a row because you just paid your parents' property taxes? It feels like drowning in slow motion. It feels like being erased $1 at a time. But I kept telling myself it was temporary. I kept thinking that once Sarah finished her art degree, once she got established, once my parents got more stable in their retirement, things would balance out. I kept believing that families were supposed to help each other, and that eventually, the help would flow both ways. I was the safety net nobody thanked, and one day, I realized I'd become their full-time funding plan. The realization didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, like a puzzle you don't want to solve. A comment here about how lucky they were to have me. A joke there about how I was their retirement plan. Little moments that didn't seem significant until I started adding them up. But the piece that made the whole picture clear. That came on a Thursday night when I discovered the conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. It happened on a Thursday night. I came home late, half asleep, still in my work heels, and froze when I heard my name in the kitchen. I'd been working 12-hour days for 3 weeks straight, trying to close a difficult audit for a client, and I was so tired I could barely think straight. I just wanted to heat up some leftover pizza and fall into bed. But there was something about the tone of their voices that made me stop. Made me press myself against the hallway wall and listen to words that would change everything. "She'll never question it," Mom said, and I could hear her stirring something on the stove, probably her evening tea. "Her name's not on anything." Dad laughed, and it wasn't a nice laugh. It was the laugh you hear from people who think they're incredibly clever. "She thinks love replaces paperwork." And just like that, I understood. Everything. All of it. The years of family helps family. The casual way they'd added my name to utility accounts but never to property deeds. The way they'd asked me to co-sign loans but never offered to put me on the house title despite the fact that I'd paid for half the renovations over the years. They weren't planning to thank me. They were planning to erase me. I stood in that hallway for 10 minutes, listening to them plan my own exclusion from the family I'd spent my entire adult life supporting. They talked about me like I was a temporary resource, something to be used up and discarded when it was no longer needed. They laughed about my naivety, my willingness to believe that blood meant something more than a business transaction. "What about when she figures it out?" Mom asked, and for a moment I thought maybe there was some guilt there, some recognition that what they were doing was wrong. "She won't," Dad said. "She's too nice. Too grateful. She'll never want to hurt the family by making it ugly. Too nice. Too grateful. Too willing to be hurt rather than cause conflict." They knew me so well. They knew exactly how to exploit every generous impulse, every desire to be loved, every fear of being seen as selfish or ungrateful. They'd turn my own character against me, weaponized my love for them into a method of control. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't confront. I didn't march into the kitchen and demand explanations or apologies or acknowledgement of what they'd said. Instead, I went to my room, opened my laptop, and started collecting proof, records, messages, the things that speak louder than family tears. Because you know what? They were wrong about one thing. I wasn't too nice to hurt the family. I was too smart to let them hurt me anymore. By day, I balanced spreadsheets. By night, I became my parents' worst nightmare, a woman who knows her rights. I spent 3 months building a case like I was preparing for war. Because I was. This wasn't going to be some emotional family confrontation where everyone cries and hugs and promises to do better. This was going to be legal. This was going to be documented. This was going to be undeniable. I traced every favor I ever gave them. The roof I fixed after the storm in 2019, I had receipts, contractor estimates, proof that I'd paid the full $8,000. The furnace I replaced when theirs died in the middle of winter, another $4,000, all documented. The new windows, the driveway repair, the kitchen renovation that Mom had wanted so badly. Every loan I'd covered when Dad's business was struggling. Every credit card payment I'd made when their debt got too high. Every utility bill, every insurance payment, every time they'd called me crying about money and I'd transferred funds from my savings to theirs. I built an archive so detailed, a judge could smell the lies through the paper. Bank statements, email chains, text messages where they thanked me for my generosity, while planning to cut me out of everything I'd helped build. The hardest part wasn't gathering the evidence. The hardest part was facing what it meant. Adding up the numbers and realizing that over the course of 8 years, I'd given them more than $60,000. $60,000 that could have been my house down payment, my wedding fund, my actual retirement savings. $60,000 that I'd handed over willingly, lovingly, thinking it was what families did for each other. $60,000, and my name wasn't on a single thing. They thought they were cutting me off. But they were only giving me motive, and evidence. The really beautiful part was that they kept digging their own grave. Even after I started documenting everything, they couldn't stop themselves from being exactly who they'd always been. More requests for money. More casual assumptions that I'd handle their problems. More jokes about how lucky they were to have such a responsible daughter. Every text message became evidence. Every voicemail became proof of their mindset. Every casual comment about how they deserved to enjoy their retirement while I was still young enough to bounce back from any financial strain, all of it went into my file. I started recording phone calls. I started printing out text messages. I started keeping a detailed log of every interaction, every request, every promise they made and broke. I became a detective investigating my own family, and the case I was building was ironclad. But I still wasn't prepared for how it would end. I thought maybe they'd gradually stop asking for money. I thought maybe they'd start feeling guilty about how much they'd taken. I thought maybe, eventually, we'd have some kind of conversation where they acknowledged what had happened and we'd find a way forward. I never imagined they'd be bold enough, cruel enough, stupid enough to try to throw me out entirely. That midnight text wasn't random. It was proof of malice, proof of intent, proof that love had turned into leverage. The message came on a Sunday night. I'd been out with friends, actually having fun for once instead of worrying about what my parents needed from me. I was laughing in an Uber, checking my phone for the time, when I saw it. Don't bother coming home. The locks are changed. Just like that. No explanation. No warning. No conversation. Just dismissal, delivered like I was some kind of tenant who'd fallen behind on rent. I screenshotted it immediately. Then I screenshotted the timestamp. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer. Yes, I'd already hired a lawyer, because by that point I knew this was inevitable. You know what the strangest part was? I felt relief. Pure, clean relief. Because finally, they'd shown their true faces. No more pretending this was about love. No more disguising cruelty as family loyalty. No more gaslighting me into thinking I was selfish for wanting basic respect and acknowledgement. They'd made it official. They'd put their intentions in writing. They'd given me the smoking gun I didn't even know I needed. I slept better that night than I had in years. Because when manipulators get cocky, they document their own downfall. Monday morning, I called my lawyer. Tuesday afternoon, we filed papers. Wednesday, their lawyer called mine, and I could practically hear the panic through the phone lines. Your client has a strong case. Can we talk? Oh, now they wanted to talk. Now, when legal consequences were on the table, suddenly communication was important. Suddenly family relationships mattered. Suddenly there were misunderstandings that needed to be cleared up. Too little, too late, and about $30,000 short of adequate. The meeting was in a gray conference room, cold walls, colder truths. Neutral territory, which was important because I never wanted to set foot in their house again. The house I'd helped pay for, helped maintain, helped improve, but apparently never had any claim to. They arrived first, Mom with fake tears already streaming down her face, Dad with fake confidence that didn't hide the tremor in his hands, Sister with fake innocence like she had no idea how we'd gotten to this point. I sat across the table and said nothing. My lawyer slid the folder across. Inside, receipts, bank transfers, text messages, every lie with a timestamp. 8 years of financial manipulation, documented and organized and absolutely devastating. For the first time in my adult life, they had to explain themselves. Not to me, I was done listening to their explanations. But to a room full of strangers who didn't care about their feelings or their excuses or their version of family loyalty. Mom tried the guilt first. How could you do this to us? We're your family. We love you. Love. She used that word like it meant something. Like it hadn't been twisted into a weapon years ago. Dad went for anger. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Everything they'd done for me. Right. Like raising me was some kind of favor they'd done out of the goodness of their hearts instead of a basic parental responsibility. Like feeding me and housing me for 18 years gave them the right to exploit me for the next decade. Sarah just cried. Pretty tears, perfect victim tears, the kind that had always worked on me before. I don't understand why you're being so mean, she whispered. Mean. I was being mean. Not they were being fraudulent, or manipulative, or criminally exploitative. I was being mean. But you know what? I was done caring about being mean. I was done caring about being nice, or grateful, or understanding, or any of the other things they'd trained me to be so they could take advantage of me more easily. The lawyers did most of the talking after that. Numbers, dates, legal precedents. The kind of language that cuts through emotion and gets to the truth underneath. And the truth was simple: I had a case. A strong one. Strong enough that their lawyer kept glancing nervously at his notes and suggesting we explore settlement options. The judge didn't need long. Evidence spoke louder than guilt trips. When we finally got to court 3 months later, it was almost anticlimactic. I'd expected drama, emotions, some kind of climactic confrontation where truth finally conquered manipulation. Instead, it was just facts. Cold, clear, undeniable facts. My lawyer presented the evidence methodically. Bank records showing $63,000 in transfers from my accounts to theirs over 8 years. Contracts and receipts proving I'd paid for major home improvements. Email chains where they'd promised to add my name to the property deed soon and then delayed month after month, year after year. Their lawyer tried to argue that these were gifts, not investments. That family members help each other out of love, not expectation of return. My lawyer countered with the midnight text message. Don't bother coming home. The locks are changed. Hard to argue that someone deserves no consideration when you've literally locked them out of a house they helped pay for. The judge was a woman in her 50s who looked like she'd heard every sob story and manipulation tactic in the book. She listened to both sides without visible emotion, asked pointed questions about specific financial transactions, and reviewed the evidence with the kind of thoroughness that made me grateful I'd been so meticulous in my documentation. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm and matter-of-fact. The plaintiff has demonstrated clear financial contribution to the property in question, with reasonable expectation of legal interest based on the defendant's communications and promises. The defendant's attempt to exclude the plaintiff from the property without compensation, particularly given the manner of that exclusion, demonstrates bad faith. Bad faith. Legal language for what I'd always known in my heart but never had words for. Half the house was legally mine, not out of pity, but out of proof. The judge ordered the house sold and the proceeds split equally between my parents and me. Not because she felt sorry for me, not because she wanted to punish them, but because the law was clear about what constitutes unjust enrichment. I watched my parents' faces crumble as the verdict was read. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something that might have been pity. They looked old, defeated, genuinely shocked that their actions had consequences. But then I remembered the laughter in their voices that Thursday night. The casual cruelty of planning my exclusion while benefiting from my generosity. The midnight text message designed to hurt and humiliate. And the pity evaporated. They'd tried to lock me out, but now I held the keys. Keys to justice, keys to compensation, keys to my own future that didn't depend on their approval or affection. They wanted to live rich off my labor. Instead, I forced the sale. They got half. I got half. But only one of us could sleep at night. The house sold faster than anyone expected. Apparently, a well-maintained property in a good neighborhood with recent renovations I'd paid for, was quite attractive to buyers. My parents had to find an apartment. A modest one, since half the house proceeds wasn't enough to buy anything comparable in the same area. They had to downsize, had to figure out how to live within their actual means instead of supplementing their income with money from their daughter. I bought a quiet apartment near the coast. Nothing fancy, nothing huge, but mine. Completely, legally, undeniably mine. Every time I lock my new door, I remember the text that started it all. You don't have a home anymore. Funny, because now I have one that's mine alone. The aftermath hasn't been quiet. They still send messages, begging, guilt-tripping, trying every manipulation technique they'd perfected over 30 years of practice. Long emails about how I'm tearing the family apart. Voicemails where mom cries about not understanding how I could be so cold. Text messages from Sarah about how I'm hurting everyone and she just wants us all to get along. I don't reply. I don't need closure. Because sometimes the sweetest justice isn't revenge, it's living peacefully behind your own door, free from people who mistake love for leverage. Do I miss having a family? Sometimes. But what I miss isn't what I actually had, what I miss is what I thought I had. The illusion of unconditional love, the fantasy of mutual support, the dream of belonging to something bigger than myself. What I actually had was a transaction disguised as a relationship. What I actually had was people who saw me as a resource to be managed rather than a person to be loved. What I actually had was conditional acceptance that disappeared the moment I stopped being useful. And you know what I've learned since I stopped participating in that transaction? Real love doesn't come with invoices. Real family doesn't keep score. Real relationships don't require you to bankrupt yourself emotionally and financially to prove your worth. I've made new friends since the lawsuit ended. Friends who invite me places without expecting me to pay. Friends who listen to my problems without immediately pivoting to their own needs. Friends who celebrate my successes without calculating how those successes can benefit them. I've started dating again. Actually dating, not just working too many hours to afford my family's lifestyle that I never had time for my own life. Men who are interested in who I am, not what I can provide. Men who offer to split the check instead of assuming I'll handle it because I'm good with money. I've started saving for things I want instead of things other people need. A vacation that's just for me. A car that I chose based on what I like, not what's practical for hauling family members around. A retirement account that will actually be there when I need it because no one else has access to it. Most importantly, I've learned to say no. Such a small word, but it changed everything. No, I can't loan you money. No, I can't co-sign that loan. No, I'm not responsible for fixing everyone else's problems. No, your emergency is not automatically my priority. The first few times I said it, it felt selfish. Cruel, even. But then I realized, it's only cruel if you've been trained to believe that your needs don't matter. It's only selfish if you've been taught that self-preservation is somehow wrong. My parents raised me to believe that good daughters sacrifice everything for their families. They were wrong. Good daughters have boundaries. Good daughters protect themselves. Good daughters recognize the difference between helping and enabling. I'm a good daughter now. Just not theirs. Sometimes people ask me if I regret taking legal action against my own family. If I feel guilty about destroying family relationships. If I wish I'd found another way to handle things. The answer is simple: you can't destroy something that was never real. You can't feel guilty about refusing to be exploited. You can't regret choosing your own well-being over other people's comfort. What I regret is how long it took me to recognize what was happening. What I regret is the years I lost being someone else's solution instead of living my own life. What I regret is believing that love required me to set myself on fire to keep other people warm. But I don't regret the lawsuit. I don't regret the evidence gathering. I don't regret the cold conference room where their lawyers had to explain why taking $60,000 from someone while planning to give them nothing in return might be legally problematic. I don't regret any of it because it gave me something I'd never had before, the right to live my own life. That midnight text message was supposed to be my ending. The final dismissal, the ultimate rejection, the proof that I'd never really mattered to them at all. Instead, it was my beginning. The evidence I needed, the motivation I required, the push toward a life where my value isn't determined by my usefulness to other people. They thought they were locking me out. But they were actually setting me free. And I sleep so much better now behind my own locked door, in my own space, with my own money in my own accounts and my own future spread out ahead of me like an open road. Because the sweetest revenge isn't hurting the people who hurt you. The sweetest revenge is building a life so good that their absence improves it. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe for more content about setting boundaries, recognizing manipulation, and building the life you actually deserve instead of the one other people expect you to accept. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? How did you handle it? What would you do differently? This is my story. But it doesn't have to be yours. Learn to recognize the signs. Learn to say no. Learn that love without respect isn't love at all. And remember, you don't owe anyone your entire life just because they gave you the first 18 years of it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.